This is Brittnee Bond, and welcome back to the podcast. I am reporting live from my very beautiful new villa here in Koh Phangan. When I was first coming to the islands here, I actually lived in a very beautiful villa in the north on the beach in Cholokom. It's a beach here, and it was literally I got here 2 days before the country lockdown. And so I landed in a villa with a bunch of friends and a maid and a cleaner and a cook. And that was kind of my standard here on the island. I had many villas. And then when the island opened, we got, my ex Andy and I got a space, the last space that I had called Remote Collective. And we just made it into a fun project where we made it our community space. It was basically an event space. And we wanted to just prototype what it felt like to just have our own little incubator of what kind of events did we want to make and what would we want for our community if we were to eventually have our own kids into one day. Basically what would it take to build a quote unquote new earth society. And we used the Remote Collective as our playground for it, and it was so fun. But for many years I had that space for almost 5 years, and I loved it. I'm so grateful for the Remote Collective and for all the hundreds of events that we had there. And I did do a lot of healing around the home. For me, because I grew up in a religious cult where I was pretty much shamed for being my very sensual, sexual self. And when I left at 24, I just immediately left the country. I moved to Costa Rica. I came back for a couple years and lived in New York City, but that was just literally to make as much money as I could while I built up a startup to get out for good. So it was kind of this build your life raft before you leave the sinking ship, which I call the Matrix. But after that, I was pretty much just traveling for 10 years and then, or 8 years, I guess I'll say, because then COVID happened and then I locked down here. And I'm grateful for all of that traveling, and also our souls and our bodies really need something to anchor in. And that was the Remote Collective. That was my last house for me. And there was a big part of my psyche that actually fought it because, now I've learned a lot about my astrology. I have Chiron in Cancer, which is about anything related. I actually had an astrology reading recently, and they were saying that pretty much, Brittnee, you could get into the nicest romantic relationship with a guy and have the most beautiful home life, and internally you will be freaking out. And I was like, why? This is what I want. What do you mean? And they're just because this is part of your energy is always challenging the status quo and always making sure that it's you're choosing it out of choice and not because someone's programming you to do this. Oh my gosh, I wish I had known that years ago, because I probably would have saved myself and my ex-partners so much pain if I was able to just recognize that maybe I am just freaking out because I just need to check and make sure that I'm actually doing this by choice. But when you're raised in a religious cult and you're not able to decide things for yourself, when things are decided for you, especially as a woman, around your body, around your viewpoints of what is moral and what you're able to who you're able to fall in love with. You're only allowed in the religion I was raised in to be with other people who were in the same religion. So they decide who you you can pick, but it has to be another Jehovah's Witness. And then also it's masturbation is really bad, and showing any sort of skin is really bad, and basically just enjoying yourself, enjoying your body is really bad. And even when you're in a monogamous married relationship, it's very I remember going to church one day, and my ex-husband, I got married when I was 18, and my ex-husband had a hickey on his neck. We had made really good love or something the night before, and the church leaders they counseled him for that, so even pleasure within a monogamous approved relationship that the religion allowed, it was still very constricted and shamed and all these things. And so I remember there was many moments. I'm talking about like feeling safe and stable in a home environment. This is like the theme of this podcast because I feel like I finally nailed this one and I want to share it for like posterity's sake, for myself to look back on, for all of you to learn from. Because if I can allow myself to receive such a beautiful villa here and receive such stability and home and nourishment, considering where I came from, I feel like, you know, you can do it too. I'm just saying. Anyone can do it. If I can come from where I came from and end up here and choose to end up here and do the work to end up here and have the support, then you can do it too. So, what was I saying? It's basically like, for me in my psyche, my association with home was constriction, was being controlled by my religion, was, you know, being in a monogamous relationship with a man that I loved as a human, but I wasn't in love with. Like, I got married when I was 18. He was the first guy that I like really dated. I didn't really understand what love was. You know, like you're just like a baby when you're 18. You have no clue what's going on. So, yeah, I loved him, but I wasn't in love with him. And so like after that, like it's really interesting because for the next 10 years, I have been in relationships, like deep connecting relationships. And this would usually also be associated with us living together. So when you travel, when you're a nomad, when you like travel full time, it's very easy to get into relationships where you are, you're living together, you're working together, you're just like, your life is like 100% together because, you know, you're like in a new country every month, or, you know, you're just living a very different life than like the rest of the people that I can call in the Matrix. You know, like Matrix for me is just mainstream normal society. I don't think there's anything negative about it, but it's just kind of this society of just like, this is what we're programmed, and we get up and we do the thing, and this is what's expected of us. And so when you're living outside of that lifestyle, one, there isn't that many of us, like especially back in like 2014 to 2016 when I first started. And two, it's like when you merge lives with someone, you like really merge lives with them. You're like, we live together now. We probably work on projects together. We travel together. You know, it's like you're married. It's like, you know, you might as well be married by most people's standards because you're spending almost all of your time together. And I actually really love that on the one hand because I love deep partnerships. I love orienting my life from the idea of being on the same team as someone. And especially when we're traveling and like you get to share all these amazing experiences and you just grow so much together, and it's like the highs and the lows and everything in between, and you're just like, what? I remember going to like these I didn't realize I did this until I had one of my boyfriends, John. He told me, Brittnee, every single time we go to a new country, you just turn to me and you're like, I can't believe we're here. Because I would just like, it would ignite my inner child. I would get so excited that I would like turn to him and be like, oh my God, we're in India. Oh my God, we're in Bali. Wow. Like, da, da, da. I was just so happy to travel to new places and to experience new things and meet all the different cultures and eat all the food. Oh my God, eat all the food. I love food. So that was the light side. And then the shadow side was like usually about 1 year into the relationship, or if I lived in one spot for quote unquote too long, I would start getting like the itch. Usually for people in Matrix society, they actually have these movies where it's called like the 7-year itch, like where you're married for 7 years and then you start like feeling like a little crazy. I would get that usually about 6 months to 1 year into a relationship or to living somewhere. And so within my dynamics with my partners, it was a lot of times because I was just growing exponentially super fast. And I realized that I like outgrew them, or like the vision that I have of what I wanted to create. Like I know where I'm meant to be. Like I know where I'm going in the world. I know where I'm, like even this villa is like one little, not one, but it's one milestone, one absolute point of my external 3D elevation. And there's a lot of my past partners that just didn't hold the same vision. They had different values, they had different life goals, or they just like really couldn't hold the vibration of expansion. I remember one partner telling me like, I want to get off the Brittnee rocket ship. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you're not meant for the timeline that I'm on, and that's okay, you know? And then there was another part that I'm really recognizing right now, especially after leaving the collective, where it's like, I just internally rebelled against anything that reminded me of home, because growing up, my dad like really wouldn't let us like leave the house. We weren't really allowed to like, I didn't enjoy being at home. It felt like being at home was like being in a prison. And then when I was married, it was like, I remember sitting on my balcony after I got off work or something and just being like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, my ex-husband was from Utah. I lived in Utah for a couple years, which is like just, it's like Mormon, where Mormons are. And I was in the Jehovah's Witness cult. So it was like a cult within a cult. Like, it was just so much. And now looking back on it, it's so ironic, because it's like I really allowed my psyche to go to all of the extremes of just craziness within this world when it comes to how people can live, and how they can program their brain to view reality in a way that is like, now that I look back on it, I'm like, what the fuck were they thinking? Or like, what are they still doing there? You know, like I went and visited my family just now this summer in the States, and they still believe all this stuff. They still believe that like God's going to come and like destroy the world at any moment. And, you know, they need to be ready. Anyways, so you can understand that like my psyche was like running away from anything related to home, because it was thinking that like it was going to need to be brainwashed into believing the world was going to end, or that, you know, home was a prison and I couldn't leave. And like, just like, so when I had the collective, it was the first place where I really allowed myself to drop into that, and in a positive way, of like allowing myself to feel like it was my home. And it took many years for that to happen, and it took a lot of extreme situations where a couple times like I gave the collective away, I gave it to friends, and then it came back to me. And then, you know, I had like, I don't even want to go into it, but like I had people try and take it away from me. And it was just like this really interesting opportunity for me to be like, am I going to claim my home? Am I going to allow myself to drop into this, like a physical space is there as an energy field to support us in our growth and our expansion. And so that's why, like, you know, you can be like, I'm super happy with a very tiny space, and that's fine. Maybe that's what you need for your expansion. For me, I know that my expansion, my energy field is huge, and it deserves to expand into a space that is on the vibrational resonance with it, you know. And this house, I haven't really shared that much online about my house, because I've been really putting my energy into it. And there's something about this spiritually as well, where it's like when you first go into a space, you need to claim it energetically. And so I have just been like grounding in the energy here. But I did host a play party on Saturday, and we had over 60 people here, and it was so juicy and so amazing. It dropped in, and like, wow, I feel like the ones this season they're already like, we have people, the next one's already almost full for January. Like, we just, so many words I can say, but just basically like they have leveled up. We have leveled up. They are deeper. They are more connected. I have a whole crew of women who like are on board with it with me. If what just happened on Saturday is going to speak to what's going to happen for the rest of the season, let's just say they are going to be so epic, so dropped in, so juicy, and so luxurious. I feel like this villa is like really finally matching my vibration. So this is, to wrap up my thing about the home, is like, I really feel that the more that we can allow ourselves to ground into a physical space that matches our vibration, the more that we can expand upwards. So like, it's like a safe container for us to like launch off of, or like a launching pad, right? And I just find that to be so beautiful that like I finally allowed myself to drop into this container that was the collective. And it was like the second I allowed it to happen, the second I really felt into it and like allowed myself to receive the home for what it was and really like appreciate my last house, the collective, it was like immediately the universe was like, okay, you don't need it anymore. Like the landlord was like, okay, we want it back. And like the roof fell in the bathroom. There was just like all of these signs that I was meant to be, that I move on. And so like I immediately just opened myself. Hold on. I just want to say one thing. I had a moment when my landlord told me that that I needed to move out. They gave me like 5 months notice. This is like the week that I got back from Japan, and I found out that Faraday had betrayed me and like cheated on me and broke all our agreements. I went to Wainom, which is on the other side of the island, just to get away for a couple of days. I came back and they told me immediately when I got into the driveway, like the landlord's daughter was there and she was like, yeah, we need you to move out, by the end of the year. And I just stood there. I was like completely sweaty from like driving 45 minutes in the sun with Afro, and like I just like hiked back over from the other side. So I was really tired, really sweaty, really heartbroken. And I had finally allowed myself to accept the collective as my home, and I was like also surrendered to the fact that like Faraday and I were not going to work out because he had just broken all our agreements. And he didn't realize this yet. He thought that he could date me and her at the same time and just do whatever the fuck he was going to do on his little Playboy mission that he was on at the time. But I got so clear in my mind of like what I needed and who I was. And I remember going back inside the house and just telling Faraday, I was like, so they want me to move out. And he was just like, oh, no, we need to save the collective. We need to convince them otherwise. And I just knew, I was like, no, this chapter is over for me. Like I have done this loop. I've already dated 2 men in this house, 2.5 men. I had a short relationship in between 2 major relationships. But basically I'd done this loop where I was dating men and I was being the servant of the community instead of the queen of the community. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't want to do this loop all over again. Because I knew I was already going to have Faraday move out. I already knew in that moment because he was just not getting it in his brain. And my heart was just completely broken and like spilling open. And I was just like, this has to be done. I need to do something new. And so there was this other part of me that was like, of course, could totally go into the scarcity mindset of like finding a nice house here on the island. Like, the island's really getting a lot busier every year. And, like, am I going to find the place that's meant for me? Because for me, it's like, I understand that physical spaces that I occupy like really matter to me. Like they mean a lot to me. So like also, if you're not much into human design, like from a human design perspective, like for me, like space really matters. Like for some people, they can like literally live in like a little box and like they don't care. It doesn't affect them energetically. For me, it really, really affects me. And so I had a flash of like, oh fuck, am I gonna like find a place, or like is it all gonna work out? And then I just, like when you have these like dark nights of the soul moments, I also call it Phoenix Rising moments, where you're just like, it's going to be okay. Like I know it's like I'm so connected to source and I know exactly what I'm meant to do in the world. I know exactly who I am. I know my value, and I know that the universe has my back. And like, this is like, the universe wants to like birth this through me. Like this expansion. So like one thing I really understood when I took ayahuasca and DMT was that we are consciousness. So like the universe, we are all parts. This is why it's like we're God particles. We're all part of the universe. Like we are all made up of source energy, just vibrating fast enough that we appear to be solid. But like that source energy, the thing about the universe is that it constantly wants to expand. So if that's through new experiences, through literally building something in the 3D, we live in a physical world. So it needs to, that expansion, yes, it can happen. It happens internally first in your psyche, in your body. But it has to also happen in the 3D world in order for the universe to keep giving you energy to expand. If you notice that there's people around that seemed like they had a lot of energy before and right now they're not, it's because they've chosen to not expand in the 3D world. They've chosen to just constrict. But when you're expansive and you're trusting the universe and you're allowing the energy through and you're creating things in the 3D and you're going after things in the 3D, the universe will give you more energy because it's like, oh, that's a really yummy vessel. Our bodies are these vessels for energy to move through. And it's like, oh, that's a really yummy vessel for, I'm going to give that person, that body, more energy because they're doing cool things with it. They're expanding things in the universe. And that's what each of us are. So when you're allowing yourself to be brave, when you're allowing yourself to really know your value, and when you're going after the things that not just excite you, but scare the shit out of you. Because I feel like that is like, sometimes like, people are like, Bashar says, follow your highest excitement. And I'm like, yes, but a lot of us have negative beliefs that make this excitement something that is scary. And my girlfriend and I were talking about this the other day. Like, we know that like when something really is our highest excitement, because it has this underlying vibration of like, I don't want to say fear, but it's not fear. It's like, if you've ever taken psychedelics, like when you're coming up on like acid or mushrooms or something, and there's this kind of like this sensation of like, basically your vibration is raising. So that's what happens on psychedelics, is it literally raises your vibration, like hard shift, like you can raise your vibration by doing things that you love and like being grateful and like, moving your body, being physical, like this all this stuff raises your vibration. When you take psychedelics, it's like, we're going to like take this on like 100x and just go, right? And when you're in that shift of like raising your vibration really fast, it can appear, you can experience it as fear in your body, because your body is like, what is happening? This is so new, or I'm not used to experience this, or like it's a lot of energy. It's also just a lot of energy going through your body. And so my girlfriend was telling me the story the other day. She's like, yeah, I was speaking on this conference about like AI and like speaking to women about how AI is really the future and like we need to not be afraid of it. We need to embrace it and like da-da-da. But she was like, I knew that this was something that was so important for me to share, especially with the feminine, especially with the women in our collective, like in our world today. And she's like, I could feel that the universe really wanted me to do this, because I was getting that like kind of like, it's like this like really hyper energy sensation going through the body. So it can feel a little bit like you drank a lot of coffee / you're coming up on acid / a little bit of MDMA, because it's like you feel good. It's a good feeling. It's a really yummy sensation. It's just like, what are we doing with this? Like, what's happening? And I think this is also something I want to say. It's like the universe wants us to do new things. Like, we are here to expand. So if you are doing the same thing over and over again every day, if you're growing through that, and if that in and of itself is expansion, that's great. But if you're doing things and you don't feel like you're expanding, it doesn't feel like you're learning anything new, then the energy is going to start draining from you, from the universe. You're going to start getting less energy from the universe. And that's when it's time to start asking yourself, like, what can I do to expand? Like, how can I grow? What am I doing today that is important for my expansion? What am I doing today that is brave? Because if we're not doing things that are brave, then we're not expanding. And for me, getting this house was really brave in many different ways, because, there's a part of me that was like the thing to know about me as Brittnee Bond is that I was raised in the dichotomy of, when I was young, we had very little money. And then my dad started a construction company, and then suddenly we had a lot of money. So I have experienced in my lifetime a lot of luxury, and I've also experienced what it feels like to have absolutely no money and to like live off like government funding, like food stamps and stuff. So because I've experienced both sides, I think it was really beautiful for me to have this so it makes me really appreciate luxury, but I don't necessarily need it, you know? And so when I was stepping into this villa, I was like, do I really need this? Is it like, I could spend the money on something else or this and that. And then I was like, but Brittnee, yeah, you deserve this, like this is who you are. This is like Brittnee Bond deserves this villa. So that not just for myself, but also for all of the expansion, like all of my friends that came over and helped me move and were here with me on the day that I moved. They were just like, wow, I feel like this is not just an upgrade for you, but also they were like, I feel upgraded just by like hanging out here and knowing that you like stepped into this expansion. They were saying that it was activating for them in a positive way, and also all of the events that I'm going to host here during high season. So I was thinking I don't want to, I also, words. In addition to hosting the play parties, I'm really excited to start hosting some women's nights here, some sisterhood nights, and also like a goddess retreat. I just have so many ideas and like so much like inspiration, so much energy is like moving through my body. And yeah, so if you're interested in joining some of the sisterhood circles that I'm going to host, or a goddess retreat, or the play parties, just reach out. And there's so much yummy stuff coming up. I'm just really excited to share. It's like there's so much that I'm like it's like hard for me to contain within my psyche. Sometimes I have to, like, I found it's really, really amazing. Like right next to where I live, like you go down the hill and there is a stream, and when you follow the stream up, there's like a little private waterfall, like right next to where I live. So I can take Afro there in the morning and sunset. I've been having so much fun just going there because it has the same energy as one of my favorite waterfalls here on the island. And I've been going there and like singing and also just like grounding the energy, because I feel so much energy coming through my body. And I'm just like, okay, we can do this. It's happening. Let's go. Like, we got this. And it's just like, when you really trust the universe that you're like on path and you're like exactly where you're meant to be, and you're also willing to be brave and like do what you're meant to do in the world, like really like go for it. The universe gives you so much energy, and it's so beautiful and so abundant. And I'm really grateful for all of it. Like, I'm saying all of this as an activation for you as well, that like, if you're sitting at home and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, it's the new year and this and that. And it's like, do something, be brave, do the thing that scares you, because like on the other side of that is your expansion. On the other side of that is all of this energy coming through for you, and the universe has your back. It wants to support you in this, and it wants to give you all of this beautiful abundance and connection and love, but you have to be the one to take the first step and allow yourself to receive it. And that's one thing I really, really am grateful for here, like accepting this villa, is because I don't know if you saw on my social media, but I got really sick like before I like moved in, pretty much like right after I signed the contract, like halfway through November. It was rainy season here on the island, so it's kind of like our version of winter. And so it's pretty normal that people are getting sick. It's just like the one time that it's just raining. It's like raining nonstop for like a whole month. And so it's like, it's a normal thing to get sick. But for me, I just couldn't get better. Like, I was having a really hard time, because every single time I thought I was getting better, I would go to the gym one time and then would get really sick again. And this went on for like weeks. And I even like moved into my house. I hosted a play party, like at the collective right before I moved in. And then I moved, and I was like, what is happening? So finally, like my soul family, my godparents, everyone was like, you need to go to the doctor. Like, you need to go get this checked out. And so I went and I got it tested. I like got all my blood tests because I wasn't sure what it was. And they told me like, yeah, within the last month you had dengue. And dengue is, it's caused by a mosquito bite. And if you don't know what it is, it's kind of, I don't know, the best way to describe it is kind of like malaria. It's really bad. It's like usually happens in tropical countries, and it comes with like a high fever and it feels like your bones are being crushed from the inside. But the main thing about dengue that really sucks is that it fucks with your brain. So it makes you it has the potential to cause extreme amounts of depression. And I always consider like stuff with like sickness is like psychosomatic and also spiritual. So this is my opinion. You can take whatever you want and leave the rest, as I encourage you to do with everything I say. But I was really asking myself, like, what is the spiritual reason why I was getting so sick? And also like Afro got bitten by a tick, and she had like tick fever. So her and I were both on like there's no medication you can give for dengue. But I had to give her antibiotics, and we were just both like kind of sick and stuff. And it was just interesting because I had moved into this beautiful place, and I was here by myself, and it was raining. And like for a whole week, I just kind of hung out in my bed. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I'm all ready for like all this expansion and like doing all these things. And all I could do is just like make tea and sleep. It's funny, as I say it, I got tired. I just feel really cozy today. Anyways, so I asked myself, like, why did this happen, right? And the thing that came to me was that, like, basically, like, the download I was getting, because, like, the thing is with dengue is you kind of, like, just feel like you're on psychedelics. Like, my friends and I who had it this year, we were like, yeah, that was, like, a trip. Like, we were on, like, a whole month-long psychedelic trip. And it pretty much just like made me realize that I was releasing a lot of negative energy that was still in my body, so that I could really receive this higher vibrational upgrade that I was meant to. But there was like certain things that I needed to let go of, like some negative beliefs and some more heartbreak that I there was a lot of things that happened in the collective with my past relationships that is just a lot of energy that it held, and it was very painful for me. And I basically got sick and was like so half the time I was sick I was in the collective, and then half the time I was here. So it was kind of like I was processing all of this stuff and getting all these flashbacks and things that I had kind of like shoved down in my psyche, and I think it was just really allowing myself to process it so that I could release it, so that I could step into the expansion here. And another thing too is it really allowed me to receive from my soul family. I got very vocal about the fact that I was not having a good time. I was not doing well. And I had people show up for me and like walk Afro, make me food, just help me move, like help me pack, like just so many amazing people in my life that were like, thank you for allowing me to show up for you. And I even had more that were like, I didn't realize how sick you were. And that's the thing with me, is because I've like gone through so much in my life where I had to just act like everything was fine. I think even within my own psyche, I don't realize that I'm doing it. So it's like this, it's like this switch that gets flipped where I just turn on my survival mode of like, okay, I just need to get it done. And when I really moved into the house here and I didn't need to do anything for a couple weeks, I just completely allowed myself to drop into, wow, I am so tired. I am actually really sick, and my body and my psyche are processing a lot of grief and a lot of heartache and a lot of just letting things go and separating with love and just saying thank you, but I deserve better than this, in many different situations and many different ways. And I also was getting therapy at the time. I started doing internal family systems therapy, which has been so helpful for me. And I just feel like what I love about internal family systems is it's like talking to different parts of your psyche as if they're different personalities. And there's certain parts of your psyche that when you were younger, they were traumatized and you weren't able to get the support that you needed. And then they create these like protective mechanisms. And those protective mechanisms are usually what's subconsciously running your belief system as an adult, whether you realize it or not. Because they're like trying to get the needs met of these younger parts of yourself, or trying to protect you so that something bad doesn't happen to you like it did when you were younger. So like trying to prevent something or trying to get a need met. And when I did this, this therapy, I was also like right around the time I was getting sick. So I feel like it all just kind of was this like vortex of like, we're just going to work through this, you know, like opening the Pandora's box. Let's just let it all out. And I was supported. I felt very emotionally supported by my therapist, by my soul family, by my community here, by the universe, by little Afro. You know, I had all the support, and all I really needed to do was receive. Which I did. I fought it a little bit, as I do, because again, it goes back to the thing that I was talking about at the beginning about like home. And you know, the thing about Chiron and Cancer is that what that means astrologically is that like that is your mission in the world. It's like, for me, Cancer is all about the home and community and relationships. But the Chiron part of it is like, this is your biggest wound and also the biggest gift that you have to give the world. And so for me, like having Chiron and Cancer is like, oh, it's like I deeply crave this relationship. And then when I'm in the relationship, I'm running away from it, or I'm finding reasons why it's not working. But it's because I actually want to completely drop in more, and I want to make sure it's safe to drop in more. So I'm testing it, right? And then within my community, I deeply crave this community. And then it's like, over the years, what does that even mean to me? And like, how do I want to show up? And who actually do I want in my community? And when I got back from the States and there was a lot of stuff that was happening within my community, I started to realize like, wow, these people that I thought were part of my community are not showing up in the way that I feel like are meeting my standards. And so I let go of a lot of people that I considered my close friends. And you know what happens when you do that? Everyone is so scared to do this, right? Because they're so worried about being alone. But when you like really own your value and you step into your vibration of like who you are on an authentic level, and you just let that shine, I had so many new people show up in my life that were actually meeting my standards and totally had my back and were showing up in the physical way, in an emotional way, in the way that I needed. And that felt nourishing and supportive for me. And so it's like, I'm just here to tell you that I tested it and it totally works. Like for you to like just really own what you need for yourself and step up for yourself and like be the person that you're meant to be here in this lifetime in order for you to live your highest timeline. And what I mean by living your highest timeline is like your soul has a version of your life that is you when you are fully trusting of the universe, when you are deeply allowing yourself to receive all the love that was meant for you, and when you're brave enough to go after the things that you are meant to do in the world. That is your highest timeline. And when you allow yourself to step into this, yes, it's scary for a little bit, but then you get the momentum building. And when you have a momentum of you living your highest timeline, beautiful things happen, like receiving the most glorious villa on the island and having my play parties be full and, you know, like lots more business opportunities coming my way that I'm excited to share with you, and like just so much more expansion. And the expansion, you'll notice the expansion is very much tied to what you can offer the world. So living your highest timeline is not just for you, but it's also helping the collective, because you following your joy is naturally going to create something in the world that is going to create positive impact. And like me doing the play parties, like so many people tell me, wow, this was like life changing for me. Like, thank you. Like I had so many people at the end of the last play party, like come up to me and just be like, thank you. Just thank you for what you do, for who you are, for what you've created here. Like it's such a healing environment. It's such a playful environment. And it creates so much room for expansion within their own psyche. So this is what I'm here for, you know? And also this is why like I started opening up slots for one-on-one coaching, and I have a group coaching program coming up soon, because it's like, I want to help. I'm here for the expansion and holding the container for you to expand. But like, you have to be brave enough to step up and be like, I actually want to receive that. I deserve that. I'm worthy of that. Because I can't convince you that you are worthy of your own expansion. I only can tell you that I have the tools for you. Like, here you go. Here's the tools. Here's a support network I just created for you. Here's a container of expansion that we can go through together, and I can hold you accountable and like be your cheerleader. But like, you have to be the one to step into that. And so many people right now in the new year coming up, they're like freaking out internally because they realize that they haven't really done anything this year that they, I've had a lot of people tell me like, wow, 2024 sucked. And like, I'm excited for 2020. And I was thinking, wow, 2024 was like one of the best years of my life when it comes to expansion. Was it easy? No fucking way. It was probably one of the most challenging years when it comes to expansion. But like, I don't know if it's my Scorpio energy. I'm just up in here like, let's expand, let's go, let's Phoenix rise out of this. Because I was thinking like, yesterday was Christmas, right? I was thinking about how yesterday, 1 year ago, my ex Faraday and I went to a party and at a friend's house, and on the way home, we got in a fight. And I was so upset at him that I told him to pull over, and I walked home barefoot. And I was like, it was really the beginning of the end of our relationship. Took about 6 more months for that to fully implode. But, but like, I just remember thinking, wow, 1 year later, and I'm like living in the most glorious villa with all of my friends surrounding me and fully on my soul mission, fully in abundance, and just really in my power, just like fucking like in my feminine power also, like not, do you see me like trying to do anything? I'm just like over here, like receiving all these glorious things from the universe. And that's what I mean by stepping into your expansion, is like really asking yourself, like, am I allowing myself to receive all of these beautiful things? Like, yeah, of course I have done things in the 3D in order to receive this, but me being in my feminine power is understanding that a lot of it is happening internally, and it's me feeling what feels yummy in my body. And like, when you're a woman and you're following your feminine power and you're really in your feminine power, doing things in the 3D only give you more energy. When you're a woman and you're doing things in your masculine energy, you're always going to feel tired, because it's not natural for us to be pushing ourselves and to be striving in a way that the masculine is here for. That's what they're here for. There's so much more I can share about that, but what I wanted to say was just that I was like really looking back on the last year and just like so proud of my expansion and so proud of myself for allowing myself to really trust myself, be brave, own my value, tell people they don't deserve to be in my life if they're not, if they're not respecting me and honoring me and taking care of me and protecting me. Like, you are the only one who is you're creating the threshold of whether people can come into your vibration, your energy or not. So you have to protect your energy field, and you tell the universe through like what you're allowing into your life and what you're not. And for me this year, I was so proud of myself for being like, I deserve better than this. And like speaking up for it. And speaking up for it in a way where I'm in my feminine. There's many moments this year where I really wanted to slash someone's tires. Where I really wanted to freak the fuck out. And I didn't, I did it like with my girlfriends. I went to the waterfall and screamed, but I didn't take it out on anyone. And I channeled that energy in order to create a more beautiful life for myself and for my community. And for that, I am very proud of myself, because that, I feel like, is the real Phoenix rising of the Scorpio. Like a younger version of Brittnee Bond would have taken all of that energy of betrayal and like pain and heartache and just like created destruction from it. And instead I created more beautiful things from it. And I allowed myself to expand, and I allowed myself to drop more into my feminine, actually. And that feels really yummy in my body. Okay, there's more I'm going to share, but I think I'm going to go now because I want to make some reels. And it's also, a beautiful day. I want to jump in my pool, which means I need to get naked. I have a rule in my house that only go in the pool if you're naked. It's not a rule. It's just something we do because it's so fun. And I'm really grateful that it's like a saltwater pool. You know, on the island, it's like most of the pools are chlorine. And I don't like that. I really love natural. So I'm grateful that my pool is saltwater. Okay, now I'm rambling. I hope you have a beautiful day. Now I'm making weird hand gestures. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Okay, have a good day. And I will see you in the next episode.